Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun. Good morning, everybody. It is Thursday. We've got jobless claims here in 4 minutes, but otherwise, markets have been incredibly quiet. We're getting a lot of news stories. I think we have a couple of interesting things to talk about today, but they're not really economic news stories. So, yeah, and if we come over to the charts, where is it? I'm a little off. I feel like I don't know. I'm going to get bed at a good time, but I just feel sleepy. Good grief. Okay, so ES yesterday, chop fest. Absolute chop fest. All right, remember we put this line out there, 42.40, and we just kind of been tipping around there. I guess we're just a little hop away from an all-time high. So here it's like if you're long stocks, then it's great. But if you are day trading, this stuff right here can be awful. I guess it depends on your strategy. If you're doing a mean reversion strategy, then you're probably happy, right? Treasuries coming back a little bit yesterday too. The auction yesterday, I think it was in the 2 years, right? Just very poor, and yields increased as a result. But we were saying now maybe yields should be increasing. So yep. Kind of after we left, it was just only ever down. And then oil is taking a little bit of a dive this morning. I didn't read any headlines. There must have been something more recent happened there on that to be causing that fallout. So we should go and look that up. Silver and gold look biased to the upside, but I mean, it's still within that awful range. Copper making a recovery. As the dollar, well, I guess, dollar has been declining a bit, but overnight it's slightly higher. So I don't know. I did read a significant number of analyst reports, though, expecting that the dollar would continue to decline. And text to speech here, turn that on. And then get into the news here. So we're going to get core PCE prices quarter over quarter, looking for a reading of 2.5%. This is an important number. Remember, the Federal Reserve looks at that number. And then we got the continuing jobless claims, initial jobless claims, 380K. That's low post-pandemic. That's kind of more what it used to be. Wow, my nose is a little runny here, but we got the news coming out in 30 seconds, so I have to deal with that afterwards. Oh, that's right. This is the other one. I was like, that doesn't look right on my dom. That's because this one is my rhythmic one. Well, I'm just going to close it since we're done with that from yesterday. Pretty good polling here. Oh, I don't have my financial juice open. Okay. Okay, so the initial jobless claims was 411 versus 380. So it was about 30K higher than expected. That seems like a lot because it's a 4, but it's really not. It's really well within the standard deviation of this sort of number. So don't see a whole lot of activity off of that. And the PCE, what was the GDP was in line. And I got core PCE 2.5 versus the forecast of 2.5. So everything in line. This could be a sleeper of a day, folks. Well, the treasuries are moving down a little bit. Market's moving ever higher, everything. Well, you mean he's dropping a little bit. Maybe that might have more to do with the interest rates, though. There are no defaults in bossing, say. Well, so since you reminded me, something that I think is really important, but an edge here that you may not. Well, I don't know if it's necessarily an edge, but China has been injecting a lot of liquidity into its markets ever since the pandemic. That's just kind of the thing that's been going on, and every day. Here, I'll show you. When I go to News Squawk, and they have a morning open rundown that I look at every morning. So in the open rundown, they will always come in and they will say what the People's Bank of China is doing. So they changed the midpoint of the currency fix, which is not something that they always point out, but this is the weakest fix since May 6th, they say. And then they injected 30 billion via a 7-day reverse repo. Okay. So this used to be like in the hundreds. So and it was less, like there's 30 billion, and then if we go back like to the 22nd, let's say. No, I guess they did 10 billion 2 days ago. It's just, if you were to go back a couple of months ago, I guess is what I should really say. Not European Open, US Open. $10 billion. I don't know. They're just not putting as much money. They're just not putting as much money into the markets, is I guess the point. So, and they mentioned that in today's News Squawk there, so I'm saying that, like, Hang Seng and Shanghai Comp traded within recent ranges as the region shrugged off the first increase in the People's Bank of China's liquidity injection since March, a bit modest. Oh, okay. So there was 30 and used to be 10, right? So Yeah, I don't know if it like matters, but it's something that we should pay attention to, that China has been kind of decreasing their credit impulse, and maybe they're not doing it quite as much today. And one of the things that's going on is they expect China's monthly PPI to reach 10%, which is pretty intense. My understanding is that every country is having to QA their currencies in order to maintain their parity to the dollar to whatever point in the past the USD was stable. Wow. The dollar definitely increased a ton after that Federal Reserve meeting, and now it's kind of come back, but the action has been lackluster, as has the rest of the market, hasn't it? Yeah. How do you see CMBS unwinding after the 30th? Oh, because the eviction moratorium ends on the 30th, huh? I think that's what you're saying. Well, so here's another thing that's another kind of under the radar kind of storyline that hasn't really gotten a lot of attention in the news. Yeah, and it's not just the eviction moratorium, it's the extended jobless benefits too, right? The extended jobless benefits for some states, well, for the federal government at least, is supposed to be extended up until September, right? So there was a question about this on the Neutral Politics subreddit, so I went and did some research and answered the question. And I don't think that there's enough data for us to really conclude what the impact of that policy has been. But there's definitely a lot of people in the market that think that the extension of the jobless benefits has depressed employment, and that we're having a employment shortage because of that. So then the only study that I've seen about this is that when the states announce that it's going to close, that the search for jobless benefits increases 5%. I don't know if that's really meaningful, because probably the people that are jobless are searching and actively searching. They're just not going to take a job unless it makes more than what they're making on unemployment, right? So basically what it's doing is it's giving them opportunity to look for a better job. And then if they don't find one by then maybe they'll settle, right? Well, it's the same thing with the housing moratorium, where it's like there's a lot of reason to think that the moratorium on evictions is preventing new supply from coming onto the market. But we really don't have a way to quantify that. And the way that the media treats it is kind of like it's not really actually going to be a big deal when it happens. But we shall see. I mean, the thing is that this has been like something that a lot of traders have been looking at as like a ticking time bomb for the past like 9 months, right? When they keep pushing it back and pushing it back. So I don't know. Like, in my mind, it should have a really huge impact. But then when I look at the markets and the news markets and everything else, it's just they aren't treating it like it's going to. Same as GameStop, just waiting for it to go up. I don't think that GameStop is going to. Maybe it will. I guess I don't have any really good reason to be in that one. I think that I still say that the real trade is past. If you read, I frankly, I do not read the Wall Street Bets due diligence anymore because there's so much trash on that subreddit and everybody is reading it. So any kind of real information that you actually could glean from that subreddit is no longer useful. So like, there's this whole thing that like the short float of the stock is really high, right? And so all of these people are saying, yeah, these hedge funds are going to have to get squeezed, yada, 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 right? I don't care. Because here's the problem. What is the stock worth? Okay. I know that none of the guys on Wall Street Bets actually care about this sort of a thing. I know that the millennials or the Gen Z traders have decided that valuation doesn't matter, but it still matters, okay? You have to know what something is worth, okay? So if there's a lot of people short the stock, like there's probably a really good reason for it. And if they're going to get squeezed, then the real question is, oh, so does that mean that the stock is actually worth more from a fundamental perspective than it is worth right now? And I have a really hard time seeing how you go through the cash flows and everything that are coming off of these companies, both GameStop and AMC, and you come in and you say, oh, these are worth way more than what the market is pricing them at. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Okay. It is priced way higher than what the fundamentals would justify. And the thing that I would pose to you is find me a model, a valuation model. Okay. So like what they do is they make these spreadsheets and they say, these are the cash flows and these are the future expected cash flows. And this is what the stock should be worth based on the future expected earnings. And ergo, this is what the stock should be worth today. Right? Go and do that analysis. Show me the Excel spreadsheet that says that GameStop is worth more than it is currently priced at today. Because if it's not, then what you are basically betting on is that some whale or somebody is eventually going to come into GameStop and push out all of the shorts. To which you have to wonder, well, why aren't they already doing it then? At 150, no, that. So are they back to 150? I thought they were still in the 200s. Yeah, they're 219. Thing is, I'm not the Excel spreadsheet fundamental stock analysis guy. There's a couple of people on TikTok I've seen that have done that, and it's mighty impressive. And I think that if you were going to trade stocks, that you would want to be doing that sort of analysis. But because that's what they did at Goldman. The whole technology infrastructure that we were maintaining was basically so that they could calculate that information really quickly. So, probably the shorts are right that it needs to come down, and that when it comes down to the fair value, then they will take the short off, or that's what they should do. But of course, everybody's going to be thinking and saying, well, and here's the other issue is that, this cult, and it really has become a cult, are going to continue to say that there's something right around the corner, no matter what is actually happening. So, what's she going to do? I don't know. It's like that. Now, there's some other stories we can talk about today that are probably more interesting. Yeah. So, did you see this building in Miami collapsed? That is pretty wild. People are afraid of GameStop because they don't understand. Well, this is just... No, CNBC is actually not really covering that story. Maybe we need to go to CNN. Bet you CNN will be talking about it. Rescue underway after Florida condo partially collapses. What is wild is my friend in Miami didn't even know it happened. Well, it happened like late last night. They're still waking up, right? Near Miami Beach, Miami-Dade police are asking residents to expect heavy traffic delays in the area and seek alternative routes following the building collapse in Surfside, Florida. Oh, right. Okay, so a large building collapsed. There are people trapped underneath of it. There are reports of screams and so forth. And the leading sentence is expect heavy traffic delays. Are you kidding me, CNN? Oh man. Oh, I guess that was just the latest update. Okay. I'm probably busting their balls too much over that. Surfside Mayor Charles Burkett said the cause of the collapse has not yet been determined, but a collapse of this nature is less likely than a lightning strike. There is no reason for this building to go down like this unless someone literally pulls out the supports from underneath, or they get washed out, or there's a sinkhole or something like that, because it just went down. He said that building was built in the 1980s. The mayor said it is unclear how many people are missing, but estimated at least 30 units may have been impacted. Dogs were deployed in the middle of the night, but in the very dangerous and dark conditions, they did not get any hits. They're worried that the rest of the building could collapse. That whole thing is just really wild. It was just a building randomly collapses. It's global warming, guys. The sea levels are rising, and that's why it collapsed. That's what people are probably going to say. That's what people are probably going to say. Okay, so let's go and look at Zero Hedge here, because they have some interesting stuff here. Initial jobless claims disappointing again as Pennsylvania pukes. So what you're saying is 30,000 more than expected, which isn't like a huge difference, but they're pointing out today's jobless claims report is the first to reflect the early June 12 phase out of emergency benefits in Alaska, Iowa, Missouri, and Mississippi. The analysts were wrong. Initial claims printed worse than expected. Yeah, 30K is really not a big deal, Zero Hedge. But something crazy is going on in Pennsylvania, as for the second week in a row, it was the massive outlier in initial claims. And then they show the chart, and it is definitely a massive outlier in initial claims, as it was the previous week. I wonder what is then, but they don't have any more information on that one. We still got a bunch of Fed speakers today, huh? Minimize that. It's time to turn on our algo. Okay, so we're going to get Bostic around the market open. I'm hearing Barker on the squawk, so we do have some Fed speakers here. I work in structural, and that building sheared pretty cleanly along the stair box. It just seems like an incredibly bizarre headline, right? Wild to see what is probably a slab failure like that. Yeah, totally. Totally. I need to come over here on Reddit and see if there was a... it was like the top story when I woke up in the shower, but it's not actually like... It's not actually the top thing yet, still. Yeah, news gets it wrong until the investigation is over, I'm sure. I sneeze. So here's the other headline, the more interesting headline that we got to talk about, right? John McAfee, who was lost his extradition case yesterday and will be extradited to the United States, was found dead in his cell in an apparent suicide. Oh my gosh, all of the conspiracy theory, like, I don't know if anybody actually believes these as conspiracy theories or not on TikTok. It's kind of hard for me to, on Reddit, it's obvious that, like, this is what people think. But on TikTok, you don't know if it's really actually a thing or if they're just saying stuff because they know that they'll get views from it. You know what I mean? So John McAfee, he has in the past said a bunch of things about how he would never commit suicide, and that when he does, it will be the deep state killing him because they hate him and all this sort of a thing. But, like, he was extradited to the United States, and it was pretty much a slam dunk case that they had on him for avoiding taxes. He had, like, admitted that he was avoiding taxes, didn't he? So he was probably going to be in prison for life. And I think that it makes perfect sense that he would have killed himself. But TikTok doesn't seem to think that. TikTok thinks that the deep state did something. What do you think? None of you care? I don't know. It's such a weird... in my mind, it's such a weird story. So the treasuries had a little bit of a bull run before we came in here. Since the news, they've come back. I haven't seen an opportunity where I could really get in other than just knowing that it was going to go down and going short. So isn't crazy to you that you'd get life for avoiding paying money? Well, I think it's more than just avoiding taxes, right? I think that it has to do with, like, everything else that he's done in connection with it. I don't know, like in terms of, like, white collar crimes. you're getting to the maximum. No. Well, the other issue is that he's wanted in connection with a murder, right? So he lived in Bolivia, and a neighbor got shot in the head, and he was like the only guy around. They just wanted him for questioning, and he refused to even go in for questioning. So this kind of makes you wonder. Like the thing that's funny about this situation, I think it's funny, frankly, is that you could probably make a good case both ways, or at least I shouldn't say you could make a good case both ways. I think that you could make a case that would be convincing to the internet both ways, right? There's a very good case that he just did not want to go back to the United States and decided that it was better to off himself than to go through with it, to keep going. And then the other split side of it is all of his posts saying that he wasn't going to commit suicide before. I would say those posts were like 6 months ago, and maybe the situation changed, right? But it's pretty apparent the guy was Looney Tunes. Yeah, he was a crazy guy. Some of his videos and stuff, he was saying crazy things. He was a smart person, don't get me wrong, right? But oftentimes smart people come along with some oddities. The really smart person is also likely to have something really weird or crazy about them too, right? So I don't know. People who don't struggle with suicidal considerations struggle to rationalize the fact that people lie about said considerations. Yeah, well, I'm betting you that when he said those things, he probably wasn't lying. I don't know. The thing is I would think that in a situation like that, that the reality of it wouldn't really hit you until after the extradition hearing, don't you think? I don't think that he was sitting there for the last 9 months thinking, yeah, I'm definitely going to get extradited to the United States and it's all over for me and yada, You could be wrong. Like the thing is, if the deep state offed him, why would they do it then? Right? That's kind of I think that's the thing probably the thing in my mind that makes me think that he probably really did commit suicide, right? Is that if you were the deep state and you were concerned about something and you felt like you needed him to be dead, I think that you would have done it before he was in Spanish prison, You wouldn't go and fight for an extradition hearing, and then when you get your extradition hearing, then you off him. Like, what? If suicide is ultimately the choice made, it was always an option in the first place. Well, that's true. Well, maybe that's true. I'm not a mind reader. I suppose that to lie about to plan on committing suicide and then telling everybody that you would never commit suicide so that people will continue to talk about you and conspiracy theories around you and after you're gone would be a very John McAfee thing to do, don't you think? Don't you think? I hadn't looked up what it was about it's a very narcissistic. Yeah, he was. I think narcissistic is probably the right, yeah. I'm not a mind reader either, but I can at the very least say I understand how those considerations work. I have for 25 years old. Well, so I don't want to get too personal, Lucy, but I have a question for you about that then. So if you have considerations like that, or you've had them in the past, do you sit and say like, well, okay, I understand that there are probably things going on in my chemistry or whatever it is that would be leading me to have these kinds of thoughts, and I should probably just not dwell on them because it's really not the correct or thing to do. You know what I mean? Because when I got on Straterra at first, they said that you would have suicidal idealizations is what is the way that they term it. And I was going through, like, I had a relationship that had kind of ended, but the girl left it in limbo because I don't know why. I think that when she ended it, that she really did plan on coming back to it, but she was just going through a difficult time herself, right? So I wasn't feeling so hot, So I was getting those suicidal idealizations because in my mind it was like, I'm just so sick of going through this process over and over and over again. But I just said, oh, it's probably the medication. It was kind of a weird thing because it was like, if that other thing wasn't going on, would I have still had those idealizations? And I mean, I can't really say, but perhaps I would have come up with some other reason to feel like, oh, it was so awful, it would be better to just not be alive or anything. You know what I mean? But, yeah, dude, getting on Certera was like that whole thing was only like a few days in that week. But the bigger thing was that I basically just felt nauseous for like a month. And then, certain times of day, it would just come on really strong. I was just like, what the heck? Tirading onto Straterra is a nasty process. Oh, Crackhead Trading, I have this question that I always wanted to ask you. Why do you think that gold is related to inflation and not economic collapse? So here's the thing, is that we have never had an economic collapse, certainly not in the United States at least, that was so total that the US dollar was no longer worth anything and everybody moved over to gold. And I'm a little skeptical that in a situation like that people would really want to have gold, because you're not going to carry that around. And in my mind, that's like there's an apocalypse. People are roaming the city and you have to defend your property with your life. And a lot of people are become nomads and, that's this sort of a thing. So I think that the economic collapse theory is perhaps a trade that maybe some retail traders take, but is not a trade that you could propose at an institution and be taken seriously, right? And so I would say that that's why. Now, when it comes to gold for the hedge against inflation, we have certainly seen times where gold moved up considerably because of inflation concerns. But here, when it actually becomes a serious issue, then all of a sudden, gold is a terrible investment. So isn't it really kind of odd? I find the whole thing with gold is just really contradictory, right? Gold should go up when there's concerns about inflation. We actually see the inflation start to happen. We get an inflation reading that's much higher than we expect. And so people anticipate that the Federal Reserve may have to raise interest rates. And the rise in interest rates causes gold to take huge hits instead of gold continuing to go up like you would expect in the trade. So you get what I mean? It's like gold is a great trade when people are scared about inflation, but as soon as those fears become actual real concerns for institutions, it's not a good trade. You know what I mean? I think the reality of the situation is that if we run into a period of stagflation, I think that a lot of traders have this idea in their heads that, if stagflation comes along, I'm going to know what to trade and I'm going to be the one making the big moolah because I trade commodities and stuff like that. And I'm not so sure that it's so cut and dry. I think that most people lose money during stagflationary periods, right? Or that it's difficult, right? So maybe from that perspective, it's not so crazy that gold took a big hit last week, right? No one thinks about the banks wanting a good entry on gold prices, but it doesn't work that way either, right? You can't just like turn around and sell gold big time so that then you can turn around and buy it, because the amount of money that you spend making that happen on the execution costs and the loss of market efficiency that you get from executing a trade in that manner means that you lose more than you would save from getting a lower price. Right? If you can go out and you can put something in the news that will cause all of the retail traders to take a trade and sell gold and push it down, that's a different thing. But you pushing it down with your order flow yourself, that's not a trade. We talk about this all the time, but this is the big myth that I think that we need to address with retail traders and explain to them why the market doesn't work that way. I have never heard that gold is negatively related to inflation is my statement. Gold is negatively correlated with an economic crisis. Inflation is good for the economy. Well, the whole thing is that gold should be positively correlated to inflation, right? If inflation is going up, then gold should go up because the value of dollars is going down, and therefore the value of gold price in dollars should go up. The reality is that the value of gold should be constant, but it's not. Like this, that's where I think that there's a problem. Like, let me approach this from a different direction, okay? If you believe that there is going to be hyperinflation, the correct trade is to go short the treasuries. The best trade in that situation is to be short treasuries, okay? There is a reason that treasuries will move, okay? This is an instrument that is designed, that its whole purpose in life, the whole reason that this financial instrument exists is so that people can hedge against inflation, guys. That's what treasuries are, right? So if there's going to be inflation, you want to go short treasuries. That's the pure trade. Gold, if there's inflation, why does gold have to go up? If there is an economic collapse, why does gold have to go up? There's no reason that it has to go up, right? I think there's this saying, this thought amongst people that the dollar will become useless and people will start using gold as their currency now, right? How do you know? How do you know that AR-15 ammunition doesn't become the standard monetary unit that everybody trades with when the dollar collapses? I'm just saying, the only reason that gold would do anything is because people believe that it will. It's really the same problem with gold, with Bitcoin, but it's just more extreme in Bitcoin, right? What are the actual real fundamentals in gold? People mine it. It is used in certain manufacturing processes. And then the entire rest of that is really speculation. People want it because they think that other people want it. That is speculation, right? So in any one particular situation, we have to acknowledge the fact that there's a possibility that gold may not react the way that we expect it to. Hence, when COVID-19 happens, society is falling apart. Gold bugs, this is exactly the situation that gold bugs are looking for. And what did gold do? Gold just took a nosedive. And why? Because people with leveraged positions were forced to liquidate their leveraged positions, and that included people with gold. Like they had lost so much money on other things that they were forced to sell their holdings in gold that were up, relatively speaking. And so during those worst days, gold had bender down moves. It's just a parking lot for cash. There you go. The banks have the capital to control the price, no problem. You cannot tell me that gold is so deep that it can't be manipulated if the banks needed to move their capital there. That is not what I said. Okay. If a bank wanted to move the price of gold they probably could. Yes. At least on a short-term basis, the bank could move the price of gold. Yes, that's true. What I'm saying is that is not a profitable trade for them. Do you understand? You move it down, there is a cost associated with moving it. Okay? It's not like you just say, oh, I want to, let's just say we're going to move the treasury. Okay? It's not like you can just come in and say, okay, I want to sell at 05 half. Okay? And then I want 132. That's where I want to buy, is I want to buy below 132. I'm going to sell everything to 05 half till I get to 132. And then you stop and you wait, and then you take all of your shares off at 132 eventually. No. What will happen when you start buying, you will move it back up. And in fact, depending on how much time has passed and so on and so forth, you will actually move it up more than when you moved it down because of the way that the liquidity works, right? Manipulation in terms of a moving price to a specific location in order to get a better entry price on something is not a profitable trade. You could get away with it in some cases, but it is a very high risk strategy, and banks do not do it. Like I will tell you straight up, at Goldman Sachs, if you were to try and carry out a trade of that nature, you would not last long. Okay. Their whole shtick, the reason that they make money is that they are efficient at executing, that they're able to execute and acquire a position without the market noticing. That's why hedge funds pay them to execute large trades, because they know that Goldman can execute it more efficiently than they can. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't situations where you might try and do a swing sort of a thing, right? So what you can do is you can, if you really want the stock to go up, if you already have acquired a certain amount that you needed, then what you can do is you can sell a bunch of your existing position and then buy it back up. And what you're going to do is you're actually going to lose a little bit of money, but the hope is that you create enough momentum when it gets going that you will do that, right? But that trade is not the you sell it and then you acquire stuff down here, right? You already have it. It's profitable when you can control order flow. Well, no. So this is like what's going on with Citadel is completely different from that, though, right? How is gold a stable asset when you can just mine more of it? Well, it's still a pretty rare thing to mine, DX Persona, but again, I ask, how can gold be a stable asset when the value of it is so dependent on people's perceptions? You get what I mean? Like, think about all of the other things that I talk about when we're trading. Like, a treasury being really the prime example, okay? A treasury yields a certain income every few months or whatever the coupon is, okay? There's a coupon. There are certain cash flows that you are basically guaranteed to get from a treasury that gives it its value. And then that value that you really get from the treasury is dependent on what the interest rate was when it was first issued and what the current interest rates are, right? You can value treasuries. There are formulas you can go in and make these spreadsheets and say, this is what a treasury is worth. This is what a forward treasury, you can say, here's what the market is pricing the treasury. This is what the forwards should be worth, and that sort of a thing. And it's not like people just think that the treasury should be worth X sort of a thing. It's like, If the market thinks that the treasury isn't worth something, I can go and buy it and just hold the treasury for the whole duration and get the coupons from it, right? Like, you could go in, you could say 10-year US treasury is worth 0. And hey, you know what? It doesn't matter because the government is still going to pay me the coupons, right? And the only way that the value of that thing changes is if the government changes the interest rate or if they stop paying the coupons, right? They default, okay? With gold, what is that thing? What is the thing that is going to force a certain price? There isn't any. The only thing is some people use it for jewelry and manufacturing, and some people think that it's useful as a hedge against inflation or against economic collapse or whatever the deal is. And there's no mechanism that would enforce that. It's just people believe it would happen. You get what I mean? Why would you need the coupon when they collapse? I mean, the only reason they would collapse is if, like, the government defaulted on its debt payments, right? Which is why the credit ratings and so forth does affect the value of a treasury, right? Because the value of a treasury reflects partly the coupon payment that you get. It also reflects partly the risk that you take on from owning the treasury, right? Because there's a risk that interest rates are going to change or that the company that you have bought the bond from is going to default. And if there is a higher probability of the company that you're buying the bond from defaulting, then you get paid more for having the risk of owning the bond. Hence, junk bonds like the MSTR offering that they get, right? Really high probability, I think, at this point. Well, not really high probability, but there's a pretty good chance that Bitcoin collapses further and MSTR is screwed, right? That could happen. That's a really big risk for them, and so they ask for a higher yield. If pricing norms haven't worked for stocks, what makes you think that treasuries aren't distorted as well in this market? It's a guess at this point. Well, that's not so true, right? It's just there are multiple factors involved, right? So the coupon is one factor, the default risk is one factor, the future interest rate is one factor, right? So the same thing with stocks, right? The future cash flow from the stock is one factor. The potential growth in future earnings growth is another factor. Okay. There's another factor that is involved in every single one of these things, and that is just the order flow or the demand from the market for that particular thing. Hence GameStop. If a bunch of retail traders come in and they want the thing, then it's going to make the price go up as they pay up to get it. But that's the big but, is that those kinds of forces can be transitory, right? They can disappear. And when they disappear, what is the thing that is going to keep the stock at that elevated price? Probably nothing, right? So one should not mistake a particular security being up and being severely mispriced right now as some sort of fundamental flaw or failing in the markets. One of the big things that I've always been trying to tell you is that market inefficiencies do exist and that they can exist for long periods of time, in fact, right? Can you hear yourself default on debt payments? Well, it's never going to happen in the United States, but a company, it happens all the time, right? That's why company bonds are bonds issued by corporations that tend to yield higher interest rates. Never say never. Yeah, it's just a very low risk. But it's even that very low risk, the market does price it into it, right? When the U.S. government starts taking on a ton of risk, you start to see treasuries sell a little bit because the market tries to adjust for that change in the risk, even though it's probably still like infinitesimally small chance that it happens. I'm just reading the Twitter here, make sure that I didn't miss anything. Paper assets are negatively correlated with, well, again, you can see a correlation out there, doesn't mean that the correlation will continue, right? But by going back to what I was saying earlier, the quintessential example of this principle that I'm trying to explain to you guys was the coronavirus market decline. All of the assets that retail traders tend to buy in anticipation of a collapse of society went down in the situation that was the closest to the thing that they're hedging against, right? It went down. And why? Well, because there's all of these other things that because the forces that are causing the correlation that you're trading it for are all in people's heads, then when the crisis actually happens, the actual money flow ends up mattering more than the fundamental news situation, right? This is the same with Bitcoin. Like, so you go into Bitcoin, like, how do you value the Bitcoin, right? Because a coin doesn't give you a potential future income stream. It doesn't, right? This is probably a big part of why all of these guys in Ethereum are trying to do the staking thing, is so that they can come in and say owning Ethereum guarantees you to this certain cash flow, right? Except for that cash flow is kind of based on the asset itself. So I don't know if that completely works, because where does the money come from? But I digress. How do you value a coin? Well, then there's all of this sort of a thing, which is like, really the value of a coin is based on how much people want it, really, and what it takes to get it. How much it takes to mine it is an important factor in Bitcoin, but the prices tend to be very much elevated compared to what it costs to actually mine a coin, right? Like, I do not believe that it costs $20,000, or where are we at? I don't believe that it costs $34,000 of energy to mine one Bitcoin. Could be wrong, but pretty sure. Good morning, Sebastian. Right. So then with Bitcoin, when SHF is it really going to behave the way that you want it to? No guarantee. Whereas with the Treasury, pretty much I can almost guarantee you. Right. It'd have to be a really unusual situation for the Treasury to not react the way that you want during a crisis like that. And that we absolutely saw. Look, what was the best way to hedge against the coronavirus crisis? To buy the treasuries. It was a great trade. There are a lot of people in Wall Street were taking it well before that and made money from it too. Treasury remains to be the best safe haven. All negative new bet market. So the E-mini did fall a little bit after that news, but overall, it's recovered since then. It wasn't really a significant change. This kind of looks to me like another one of those days where I just don't take a trade. Oh yeah. So the place where I was going with the Bitcoin thing was, so if you're not entitled to any kind of future cash flows and everything, then it's really just what people want. Well, what if something happens in the future and people don't want Bitcoin anymore? You know, because it gets supplanted by a different technology, or the government bans it, or, could be worth zero. And the problem is that if Bitcoin could potentially be worth zero in the future, then really it's worth zero right now, right? That's the argument that Taleb tries to make about it. But let's see, what is he saying about it? Can someone tell this malfunctioning economist that this is not my website and this is not where he should be reading my paper? My paper is on academia.edu, and I am not associated with nassimtaleb.org. Oh, really? I need to blow my nose, so be right back. Oh, we have Fed stress test results today? I did not know. That sort of thing usually comes out after the market, so right? Well, and by the way, there's a good amount of volume trading down here in the Treasury, but it's just kind of like evenly distributing out there as the market, steepens maybe by a tick. Kind of hard to pull anything out of that. Wow, Arches National Park says that the park is currently full. Huh. Well, look at that. That was a pretty good little buy on the ahead of the open. They clearly want to go for new all-time highs, huh? Well, things are so constrained. If I do take a trade, I should probably be looking for a smaller one. Fed's Harker is speaking. First impulse appears to be down. What do you think about repo markets being over cap at 800 billion? So I need to look at the latest because I didn't look at the last few days of what those numbers were, but I would expect there to still be a little bit of strain on the system until after the Russell rebalance at the very least. After that, there's kind of a question about how long it would take to equalize out, because you got to realize that the Federal Reserve is paying people money. 5 basis points to park their money overnight is actually like really great for those banks. So yeah, of course they're all doing it. And I think the idea is that the rest of the market should catch up, and I do not believe that has happened, right? So we should expect that there would be an increase at the repo markets, at least in the short term. But if we're like, a week, if we're like next Friday and it's still really high, then we're gonna, I don't know if it's like a big problem, like it would have some sort of spillover effect on the rest of the economy or anything. But at the very least, we would have to start a discussion about what they might need to change, right? It's quite a bit distributing there at 42.53. Okay, that wasn't bad. I don't know. I changed my target to 8 ticks. I feel like that was like a really like meh. Doesn't matter. But at the same time, going for 16 ticks might be well, I actually think that we probably could get another 2 points up there. Like, could we get to 57? Yeah. But yeah, I should stick to smaller targets for now. I had a hard time in the earlier in the week when I took trades, right? So. Overall, though, the cumulative delta on the open wiped out that little rise that we had before the open. So it says there's you too. Well, I got it. I liked my trade better. That's what my point was. Your trade, I think you should have waited until way after the open, right? What was your take on AMC and GME? Well, I don't really day trade stocks. I will pick companies that I think are good companies and hold them for a long time. But, especially the wash trading rules kind of make day trading stocks not really very worthwhile for me. Because otherwise you gotta like pick a new stock every day. And I just think the whole thing is stupid. You can't be a market maker in stocks, with the wash trading rules. So I am pretty sure, I've never gone through and done like a spreadsheet analysis. We were talking about this earlier, but I'm pretty sure that when you factor in future cash flows and growth and everything else, that AMC and GameStop are probably not worth the valuation that the market is currently giving them, right? So in the long run, and maybe something crazy will happen before that, but in the long run, probably these stocks come down. And everybody wants to say that there's still shorts to squeeze, but I think that it is probably the case. Melvin Capital was the one that really lost money in the original short squeeze. Since then, there's been a lot of activity in the stock. There's been a lot of volume. Probably anybody that's short has probably increased their cost basis. And so I don't think that it's so much a guarantee that these guys go and get stopped out as people on Reddit think. But that's a really, really speculative play. Every once in a while, there's a situation where you can just know that something is going to happen. Like, I traded the GameStop thing when it happened, and I did make some money on it. It was a very, very short trade, but I did make some money on it, right? But, you know, that situation is like a very short-lived situation. I've only seen it twice. I remember when it happened with, what was it, Volkswagen after the 2008 crisis. And now I've seen it with GameStop. But this whole thing of like, well, it will continue going on for 4 months, and if you wait, then maybe next year the squeeze will happen or something like that. I'm sitting here like, okay, you guys go and do that. I'm going to go and try and find greener pastures. Of course, the better question then at that point, or it begs the question at that point, okay, where are some better pastures? Because, man, S&P 500 has been pretty difficult for day trading lately, especially if you're trying to do a trending strategy. And I still, if I had taken that trade at 53, I would still be waiting for my target at 57. So this just kind of justifying my bringing the target in. Maybe I don't need to bring it in to 2. Maybe I should do 3. 12 ticks. I see a lot of stuff on Twitter about the opening high, but we still have a ways to go for the like intraday all-time high, right? Intraday all-time high 42.58. Let's call it 42.60. You think I was about to drop? It could. It's certainly giving us some indications in the delta that it could do that, huh? Morning, Win. How have you been? I feel like even the market is contributing to people not looking for a job, including the stock market going up. I think people will start to look for a job when the market goes down. Well, so here's my theory, Gus. You might be responding to something I said earlier, so make sure you click that like button. Like, listen to my response and then click that like button and catch up. I think that a lot of these jobs lost were not jobs that were necessary for the people that held them. You know what I mean? Oh, no, just came in. Okay, so what I mean by that is probably a lot of these jobs were from people that were going to school or live with their parents, or they have a spouse that is making money. You know, basically, if they don't have that job, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're out on the street homeless, right? So when they announced that they were getting rid of the benefits in some states, some people went and looked at like the search traffic, and they found that the people looking for jobs only increased by 5%. So that doesn't really line up very well with this idea that like the huge number of people are just not doing anything because the government is paying them. But I think that what it speaks to more is that there's a bunch of people that didn't really need to work, and they're just saying, well, I'm just not going to work if the government doesn't, is going to pay for it, right? And then afterwards, there's been like this big realignment, right? And I think this has been the case for a lot of people, right? Because a lot of couples, have been like, well, I want it to be so that we could live off of just the husband's income, but in a pinch, we can reduce our costs and we can, just live on his income. But normally I want to also work too so that we have more money to play with, right? Like that's kind of I think that's kind of the idea. Right? And so that's kind of where I'm saying that, like, there's a lot of people, I think, that during the pandemic have kind of asked themselves if the extra money that they were making from the job that they didn't need was really worth it, right? I think that a lot of them are sitting down and saying, you know what? Yeah, I was able to buy a Nintendo Switch, but it wasn't worth working for Amazon, right? So the reason why I say that is because I'm not convinced that after the extended jobless benefits expire in September and maybe give it a month or two, I think that we will probably still have some labor shortages, essentially, because there's just a lot of people that didn't have to work that are probably saying to themselves, like, you really got to make it worth it for me to work, right? Because a lot of the productivity that we've had recently has come out of bringing people into the job market that historically weren't there, right? Particularly women. How do I know? Beats me. Okay, well, there's 57, so it would have. I think the trade would have worked out eventually. It was maybe a little bit more. No. Wait, did I actually get in at 53 though? I did. Huh. Oh, that's kind of weird. That kind of sounds to me more like an issue with your mouse connection though than a hack. Make sure you have antivirus and anti-malware software installed. He's still saying that he thinks that the market will turn down. I don't know. I think that they'd want to tag 60. I think that 4260 is probably RJ. It is probably a big target for them. Well, but the market is. We should be careful here, Ace. I don't know. So oftentimes when we see this persistent downside selling, like we are right now, where do we go from 17,000 to negative 17 to negative 21,000, right? So that's like 3.5, 4,000 contracts short in cumulative delta. We kind of think, oh yeah, like that's negative for markets, but sometimes that's like hedging action, and so we'll get these really bizarre moves where the order flow is persistently down, but we still move up. Oh, it's heading on now. Yeah. That was, I was saying earlier, we got a lot of news that's just not really financial news, right? Well, the third major news story is that it rained in Utah. That's news. Still hot AF out there, but that's news. Mm-mm-mm. The market does a Beyblade once. So something that will happen to me, crackhead, is so I have a USB um, hub that I can switch between the two computers, and sometimes it will switch over to my laptop when I don't want it to. It will just do it on its own. And when that happens, you can get a situation where the mouse is saying, I'm moving down. But then because the mouse gets interrupted mid thing, it basically, that signal continues. The computer continues to have that signal and the mouse continues moving, even though like the mouse isn't connected. So if you're saying like your mouse was moving like that, that's kind of what that sounds like to me. Is that maybe your mouse is going, or that the connector for it is being shoddy. Treasuries move on all the way up there, huh? Oh, that happened fast too. I didn't notice. They just shot. Well, it's because I don't have the tick thing making the sound for the treasuries, only for the ES. How did that happen? Strong volume in the 5-year. Yeah, buy volume across the board, actually. Oh, but there was that that news headline, right? Right after the open. Yes, that's right. I forget what it was. It was a Harker. Harker said something. Bostic or Harker said something. It's haunted. Haunted computer. Have you seen the well, kind of like maybe a related sort of a thing? Have you ever seen like the desktop goose? Like there's this goose that will come onto your desktop and like it will actually come and like eat your mouse cursor or something like that. Probably be easier to see if you were hacked if you didn't have 5,000 Google. Oh man. 529 plans hit record highs in 2020. Yeah, makes sense. I tell you what, the government is going to start sending you monthly payments now. I think that it would be foolish not to put some of that money into 529 plans for the kids, because I don't see how you continue to do that sort of thing and it doesn't like increase the cost of education, right? Nassim Taleb is so um, antagonistic about his Bitcoin. What are we calling it? The Bitcoin black paper now? Yes. Like anytime that somebody comes and says something, like criticizes it, he does not shy away from just calling them absolutely clueless. And I mean, he's right, but it's just the brazen disrespect that he does it with, as I just find a little shocking. I don't know, man. Like when I look at where price is and the way things are moving, I start to think, oh yeah, probably they go up for another high. Then I look at the volume and everything else, and I'm like, oh man, it's a bad trade. Would be probably a bad trade. We should pull this up over here. Yeah. Lucas, can someone poke at ES to see if it's alive? Right. Well, there was a really good order flow there or read up on the open. Did you see all of that volume that was trading at 53 and absorbing and stuff? It's not often that a trade like that in ES works so well. Maybe we're coming back into a period where the markets are constrained enough that that kind of an order flow read is possible. I don't know. There's something wrong with my feed. I now look at your screen and my feed is like in slow. Oh, really? I don't know. You know, it's one thing that I should do here is that I'm kind of like in the process of switching data feeds. And so I haven't actually switched all of them, only ES. Okay, so here's the CQG. Yeah, okay. CQG gives me enough. Was it we were always concerned that we wouldn't get enough level 2 in CQG, but that's acceptable. I have to come over here and add instrument though, and add MES to that list too. No, I guess that's safe. Oh, wait, what? Now that's interesting. That is really, really interesting. So I'm using CQG. I have both CQG and Rhythmic up on here right now. Okay. So in ES, you get quite a few price levels, but MES you don't. I suppose in MES it only matters what the inside one bid and ask is, but oh, man. Okay. I bet you they probably save a lot of data by not showing them all in MES, but well, I will switch it back so that we can continue to see it until we're forced to shut down on the Rhythmic one. So I asked them yesterday, like, oh, I'd like to be able to connect Jigsaw directly with CQG, and apparently it's a $10 extra fee to do that. And I was like, maybe I'd be better off going with Rhythmic. But apparently, because they're in the process of switching over to becoming their own FCM, you can't switch over to Rhythmic data with NinjaTrader brokerage at this exact moment. They said that once they have transitioned over, that then I would be able to do it. But I don't know how long that's going to be. Oh, hey, bots, how are you? ES and CL are the only two contracts Continuum offers with expanded bid ask depth at the moment. Yes. I find that so curious. I know. Like, I keep going through my head like, oh, what's the difference between the two and all of this sort of a thing? But then I remember, oh yeah, there is practically no difference. Who is going to be their own FCM? NinjaTrader brokerages. They're moving away from using Phillips and whatever they are. You know what was so annoying for me with Phillips was they have a way for you to use, like, connect to your bank and deposit money. But it uses Plaid. Is that how it said? PLAID. And Plaid doesn't have like all of the credit unions in Utah and stuff in there. So I couldn't deposit money that way. I had to do a money transfer. That was annoying. Okay. But it's a small thing. It was kind of annoying. Uzi says, really? I'm with NinjaTrader 8 through Dorman. Yeah. Depositing is a pain in the... Yeah. Why did you go through... Well, that's interesting. I mean, my understanding is that Dorman versus Phillips doesn't really matter, but that Dorman is probably better if you're in Europe, and Phillips is probably better if you're in the US. Plaid is pronounced plaid. Okay. Yeah. You have to use Plaid, and Plaid wouldn't connect to my bank. And it didn't have any option for me to just enter in the routing numbers and do it either. Like, that was the thing that was really annoying to me. It's just like, okay, but all you actually need is my routing number and account number, and there's nowhere for me to put that in? Like, what? Trader 8 offered both at first and then moved everyone to Dorman? What did you guys talk about data feeds yesterday? Oh, were you not here when we were talking about the data feeds, Kyle? Well, the basic gist of it was that with them right next to each other, although there does appear to be a slight, maybe millisecond lag when you run the data through the NinjaTrader bridge that I had to do, that they track each other almost tick for tick. So you would see my CQG through sorry. Did I? Yeah, I don't know. You would see my CQG. You would see Rhythmic change first, and then you would see CQG change one frame afterwards because of the bridge. So there could be like slight differences, but they're going to be minuscule. They're going to be minuscule. And they won't. That's why I wanted to be able to connect it directly. That's why I was asking them, can you set it up so, because in CQG they have to enable Jigsaw for you, and I guess they charge for it too, which is retarded. Because I wanted to connect them both directly into Jigsaw, and that would be a more fair test, because it does appear to me that the bridge introduces a few milliseconds of lag. Oh, that's right. Like, it's full depth is coming at some point, right? I don't know. Going back to what, the thing that I was saying yesterday, and I still hold to it, is that the difference in terms of like milliseconds and feed quality between CQG and Rhythmic is so minuscule that I can't really, even if you're going through it frame by frame, you can't really see it. We can only see the difference with the NinjaTrader bridge. But something that does make a difference is that with Rhythmic, you can use Rhythmic Trader Pro and connect multiple programs into Rhythmic Trader Pro and have a bunch of programs open at the same time and not have to pay an extra data feed. Whereas CQG, you don't have to do that. Well, you can't do that. With CQG, you basically have to have a bridge. With CQG, if you want to connect NinjaTrader directly, or if you want to connect Jigsaw directly to it because you're concerned that NinjaTrader will crash on you or something like that, you have to pay an extra data fee, right? So I feel personally that Rhythmic is a better feed if you're going to do the whole Jigsaw setup. If you're going to do the whole Jigsaw setup, then it's slightly better. And then the other big difference is which one is more reliable, which one goes down more. Well, as of recently, it seems to be CQG, but really, if we were going to make a big conclusion on that, we should do more of an empirical study. We should go in and say, where were all of the instances where you couldn't trade for both feeds? Because both of them have certainly done it in my day, and it seems to me like it's happened more often than CQG, but I don't actually know. They're pretty rare anyways, so the difference between them is going to be like CQG has done it 5 times and Rhythmic has done it twice or something like that, But again, like, how do we know? Because all I can say is that it was down on Monday for CQG. I don't remember the last time that there was another problem, to be honest. Oh, you're using Kinetic, Uzi? Ah. Yeah, I really don't feel like the Kinetic data is worth it. I could get the Kinetic data, actually. They offer it for me as a ecosystem guy, but did you see the AMP offers? Yeah, like their basic version of it, right? I don't know. I'll go out on a ledge here because I kind of like all of them, but like the Edge Pro X platform, I feel that Edge Pro X is a better platform than Quant Tower, right? Like if I was looking for like a free platform like that, I think that I would be going with Quant Tower and not, or sorry, I would be going with Edge Pro X and not Quant Tower. Is their platform is free too, right? Not the basic version, no. Well, they say it's full in my email at least. Oh, okay, it's not. Edge Pro X is $34 a month. Edge Pro X is $34 a month. Let's look here. AMP Futures. Seth, what setup are you waiting to enter the trade? And I'm not going to say. But I don't necessarily look for like a specific setup per se all the time. Kind of depends on the situation. Honestly, a lot of my trades, I kind of approach it from the same way that like Goldman executing would approach it. I come in and I say, I want to buy around this certain time of day based on the context of what's going on and everything. And then when it comes to that time period, I'm just looking to get the best execution that I can. Seth trades the Fibonacci 68. you were around for that argument that we had in Discord yesterday? Oh yeah, you were. Yeah, because you're on man. So there was this guy. I haven't really been paying too much attention to the Discord lately, to be honest. I feel when I saw that, I kind of felt bad. I was like, I haven't been participating on Discord very much lately, but the market is just so slow. It's like, what are you gonna say? Well, there's you can screw around and have fun, but I'm not necessarily always good at that. I'm not necessarily always good at just having the fun. I'm a little bit too serious. I'm a little bit too analytical. That's kind of a thing that the Adderall does, right? Anyways, there's this guy that's been in Discord, and he had kind of been bragging about his trades for a couple of days. And I mean, I had seen that he was in there, but I was like, somebody just says something, who cares? But what the thing that I really take an issue with is when people really start to hold their trading up as an example. You get what I mean? what will basically the argument goes like this. Let me drink water. This is the thing that I will not put up with in Discord. Okay. Somebody comes in and they say, hey guys, you should all trade Fibonacci levels. And then everybody comes in and they say, nah, Fibonacci levels, they don't work. That's total nonsense. And then this person would come in and he would say, no, you guys are wrong. You're all objectively wrong. And I know that you're wrong. And the reason that I know that you're wrong is because I'm such a good trader and I'm making money and you're not. Okay, that is the argument that I will not put up with, because if you're going to hold yourself up as an example, then you're going to have to prove that you are really, truly having the success that you are, and that the success that you believe you are having it really empirically proved, or not empirically, but it is really, truly has to do with the thing that you think you're trading. Okay. So with this guy, I start asking him the questions and realize that when somebody comes along and they tell you that there is a certain technical setup, especially like a pure price, what is the word that we use? A price time series based edge, which is to mean that you're looking at open, high, low, close bars, and you're sorting something out from that as your trade signal. Okay. And somebody comes in and they say that works. It is almost always because of two reasons. One, because they are taking on excess risk, which means that their stop is larger than their target. Or B, or let's not even say their stop is larger than their target. Their average loss is larger than their average win. Okay. Or B, little bit larger. That was good. And his win rate was 61%. And I was like, at first I was like, oh, that's really good. But then I looked at the number of trades and it was 67 trades, right? And he was like, this is on a combine. I've been trading it for a while or something like that. And I went back and started looking at my own stats, because I was like, well, could I go and cherry pick a set of data that would have similar stats? Well, I can definitely cherry pick some periods in my own trading. Well, actually, for almost a whole year, especially if you just discount a couple of experimental trades that you shouldn't have done. But on almost all of my trades, I'm making 1.5 times what my stop is. So my win rate tends to be more around the 45% range. So I didn't have one where I was able to pull 60%. But when I looked at my own trading, it was like if I just picked out like a 2.5 month period or whatever it was like that, I would have like a couple hundred trades. And this guy says, "I've always been a couple months," and it was 67 trades. That is not a large enough data sample, man. Like, if you're going to say that something like that works, you should have thousands of trades trading it, and it should cover a period of multiple years, like probably more than 2, probably more like 4 or 5 years worth of data to come in and say, like, this setup is reliable, right? So here you get this guy, he's coming in and saying Fibonacci levels work, and he really does not have the empirical evidence to be saying that, and he didn't even seem to understand why. So at first I thought, maybe this guy is just trying to sell people on something, because he was like calling out the names of other traders. And I went and I looked up the website of the name that he had name checked, and it was just like your classic kind of funnel setup. In fact, it was funny because he was selling an indicator for, I think that it didn't say, but I think that it was for Thinkorswim. It looked like Thinkorswim in the video. But the thing that he was giving out was basically zigzag. It was basically the zigzag indicator. And then he was like, this is what I base my Fibonacci's off of. I was just like, who would buy this? Like, who believes this crap? Like, but then the thing that really got me going on that one, like, I'm just kind of, so at that point I'm like, okay, this guy is probably just naive, right? But then, like, the thing was, what trader, who comes into a trading chat room and posts a link like that as in an argument? Like, you've got to know that anywhere you go, Reddit, our place, Futures.io, anywhere that you go in the community, you start posting links to websites or to furus on Twitter that make excessive claims and all of that sort of a thing as like your evidence for something, that you are going to get shit. We all know it, right? And how do we all know it? Because we all sit there on Reddit and troll these sorts of things. Even on Reddit, because there's a lot of bad advice on Reddit, and there is a lot of technical analysis BS that means absolutely nothing, and they just love that stuff on Reddit, and they don't pay attention to anything that matters, all right? But even them, anything that has any even kind of scent of promotion just gets squashed immediately, you know? Kick him, it deteriorates the level of the community. Well, what happened was we scared him off. He was basically like, well, I didn't realize that this community was like that. And I'm like, okay, because that's exactly like what my thinking was. Is like, okay, I really don't care if you actually, I would prefer that you go, because you're not contributing anything. If what you think it is that works is fibs. But I was also a little bit disappointed too, because I thought that I was going to come, like what normally happens is they say X thing works, and I go, oh really, let's backtest it. And then they explain how it works, and we backtested it and we see that it doesn't work, because I haven't backtested fib levels. And like, what would be the exact setup that you would need to justify taking a trade? You know, kind of interesting. Or like, what would be, first we would need to design an indicator to determine how we do the fibs, because there's a lot of art behind which pivots you're picking as your fib levels, right? You're saying fibs don't work. I haven't seen any evidence to suggest that they do. I have to say that with Fibonacci levels in particular, that the whole theory behind it just sounds ridiculous to me. The whole theory behind it sounds ridiculous to me. He got embarrassed and left, essentially. Yep. That's essentially what I think happened, was he got embarrassed and left. I don't think that he was trying to run us for one, or trolling or anything. I think that he really just didn't know, and was trying to save face by making us out to be meanies. Whereas, like, if he had posted anything else, if he had put that like almost anywhere else, that would have been like instantly banned. Whereas I'm willing to, like, you know, toy around with people a little bit, maybe even move them into the quarantine. Oh man, you guys remember the last time? YouTube Finance will remember this. The last time that we threw somebody into quarantine. Do I even have a quarantine anymore? Or where was it? Or maybe we threw them into the horse. Oh my gosh. It wasn't that we threw them into the horse. We told them to take the argument to the horse, and so they did. And this person was posting all of this stuff about how smart they were and everything. And oh man, some of these, like, I'm pretty sure that guy was day drinking. Absolutely nuts. Yeah. It was so quotable. Where was it? Oh my gosh. It was so, because we're low IQ plebs. Yeah, he was like saying that he has an IQ of 130. There you go. Where is it? Dude, my IQ is 130. WTF. Watch the effing video you might. Oh yeah, because he was arguing about some conspiracy theory. Oh my gosh. Trade Dreader remembers too. So I don't know if Ace is still on there, but if Ace, you would enjoy that sort of stuff. Yeah, that was a good reason to get on the Discord, man. Oh man. Yeah, I'm the IO psychologist that weighed in on how IQ is calculated. So tell me something. So I saw this video the other day that I thought was really weird. So the video was, could you predict or how good are people at guessing what other people's IQ is? And so they had a couple of people in the room and they all talked with each other. One of the guys was Asian and one of the guys was like a trade worker, right? And one of the guys was this girl that was at university, right? And so they talked for a while. And this girl from the university, she thought that she probably had the highest IQ. And she thought that the guy that was in a trade job was the lowest IQ. And it was like the exact opposite. You're talking about that Jubilee video? Yeah, I think it was. I think that's what it was from. Yeah. And she was like the lowest one. Like she was the one that was talking the most crap. And she had the lowest IQ. Yeah, Uzi says he saw this too. Yeah. I wouldn't have seen it unless it was on TikTok, unless I had seen it on TikTok. So that's how I came across it. But you know what I actually found interesting about that video was that all of them had above average IQ. All of them were like in the 120 range, right? The webpage where they made that, did they take a webpage IQ test? Is that how they did it? If you want to post a link, you have to put a period in there. Lucas says, of course. No, I thought that they took like a legit IQ test. Well, then that explains it. So when I take those online tests, it usually tells me that I'm like 130, 140. And I'm like, I don't think that's accurate. How else? No psychologist and made them in a laptop. Okay. Depends on the IQ test actually taken. Most of them have a name associated. Yeah. My observation on this has generally been that to take a real test that you have to pay and go in a testing center and stuff like that. So, because I am a little curious about it because people tell me that they think I'm smart. That's something that people frequently tell me when I'm like they're first meeting me or whatever. I mean, it's happened on stream a couple of times. People will say that. But I also know that I have like the ADHD. And I seem to vaguely remember being a kid and having to take an IQ test and thinking that it was like really, really hard. Like thinking, man, half of the things on this are like make zero sense at all. That's the issue with a lot of the online tests that I have seen, is that if you understand how those IQ tests are done and what sort of pattern recognition they're trying to point out, like especially the ones with the diagrams that are like, here's this one, so how complete the pattern sort of a thing. So it's almost like, oh, I can study for that test though, right? And so then I'll go through it and answer almost every question correctly. And I don't think it's because it's a legitimate challenging IQ test. I think it's just because it's like a really poor IQ test and I know enough about the test that I'm like prepared. Yeah, Win says, I think you're smart. I've listened to you for 2 years and you're way smarter than the average bear or bull or traders I have known. Well, but that's again where I'm saying that. So I'm going to appear smart simply because I have a approach that is very different to what most people do in terms of how do I want to trade and so forth, right? Because most people want to come in and say, what is the minimum amount of effort that I can do to make money trading? That's really how it works. That's really the problem, right? And what I do is I come in and I say, I don't think that it's so simple. I need to know absolutely everything that I possibly can, and that we should have a nuanced analysis of everything, and that we should have empirical evidence if we're going to believe in a particular trading strategy or market inefficiency, right? And so anytime that somebody will come in with a question, I'm going to be trying to find a way to point something out about that they might not be aware of. And so that is going to make you appear smart. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I would do well on an IQ test, right? Like, especially if I don't have medication, it's going to be very, very difficult, right? And so I would suspect that if I took an IQ test, that I would probably test above average, but not excessively so. You get what I mean? Like, I go through that and I'm thinking, I'm probably like 105, 110. And then you take the online tests and they're like 140. I was like, no, that's total BS. But it was funny, that one video, that they were all like 120, 130. Wouldn't you be cheating with meds though? I think that there's like rules about it. And I suppose it depends on the test that you take, but I think that it would be okay for me to take the medication on the test. But you can also just be given more time. Yeah. First impressions aren't good for knowing someone's intelligence. That's why IQ tests take so long, and even IQ tests are not that accurate, really. I was in a research study for a drug and I took the Wechsler test. Ironically, I knew how to issue the test myself, so always curious if I messed with their data. Oh, there you go, right? See if you can solve Einstein's zebra riddle. People often think I'm done and then realize I'm sorry. Yeah, I just like... So that's another thing that I find odd, is that everybody acts like that IQ is this thing that's like front and center and that you're going to notice immediately. But it seems to me that if somebody is smarter than myself, that it is not going to be something that I'm going to realize at first. And I have definitely met people that after knowing them for a long time that I think were probably higher intelligence level than myself. I took Adderall before the ACT and underscored my best attempt by 4 points. I can't remember what I got on the ACT now. I was like, isn't the top score like 38? I think I got something like a 32 or 34 out of 38. Wasn't amazing. I knew so many kids that were like perfect. Okay. Einstein's zebra. The problem, the reason why I didn't respond to the Einstein zebra puzzle thing is because I suspect that it's going to be something I've heard before. There are 5 houses of different colors next to each other. In each house lives a man. Each man has a unique nationality, an exclusive favorite drink, a distinct favorite brand of cigarettes, and they keep specific pets. Use all the clues below to fill the grid and answer the question, who owns the fish? I've seen things like this before. I don't want to do this right now. Wait, what time is it? 8:25? Well, markets are kind of back towards their high after kind of screwing around for 30 minutes. But since we've started talking about this... Okay, well, I've done this sort of a thing before, so... So I've done this sort of thing before, and first you have to find there's one that will like 100% give you something. Does it matter which house is which? What are these? Yeah, those don't actually do anything. Brit lives in the red house. Weed keeps dogs. Dane drinks tea. See, so I don't see anything listed in houses. Person who smokes Pall Mall, rears birds. Owner of yellow house smokes Dunhill. Man living in the center house drinks milk. Okay, so this guy drinks milk. The Norwegian lives in the first house. Okay. Man who smokes Belens lives next door to the one who keeps cats. Man who keeps horses lives next to the man who smokes the Dunhill. Man who blah, blah, blah. The Norwegian lives next to the blue house. Okay. Maybe intelligence is the ability to explain your reasoning process well. Wu says that I'm too slow, or I probably am. But this is the sort of a thing where I think that you will see, even when I'm on Adderall, that my ADHD will take over, right? Because I'm having a hard time wanting to read. I'm trying to skip through and find the things. So let's read them all over again and see if there was any clear ones that we missed. Britt lives in the red house. Swede keeps dogs as pets. The Dane drinks tea. The greenhouse is exactly to the left of the White House. So that means that it could be house 3 or 4, right? The owner of the greenhouse drinks coffee. The person who smokes Pall Mall rears birds. The owner of the yellow house smokes Dunhill. Man living in the center house drinks milk. Norwegian lives in the first house. Man who smokes blends lives next to the one who keeps cats. The man who keeps horses lives next to the man who smokes Dunhill. A man who smokes Blue Master drinks beer. The German smokes Prince. Norwegian lives next to the blue house. And the man who smokes blend has a neighbor who drinks water. Your ADHD is the market maker? Well, nah. So what ADHD will kind of do is, like, it's very difficult to do a task unless doing that task gives you the neurochemicals, which means that there has to be some sort of difficulty, urgency, novelty, or interest in it, right? So in this particular instance, I guess I don't think of it as a difficult task per se. Like, this to me is just like go through it and find the logical things until you've thought of them all and then you've answered it, right? I've done this sort of a test before when I was a kid. So I don't like have any interest or any of, so it's not really doing it for me. With this many smokers, I deduce it was the 70s, right? So do we see anything about the Norwegian other than that? Bright green, owner. Okay, so there's nothing in there about our Norwegian. Is there anything about blue? Nope. And what about milk? Because we had the guy in the middle drinks milk, right? Britt lives in the red house. Swede keeps dogs. Dane drinks tea. Green, Pall Mall. Yellow, Dunhill. Blends, cats. Horses, Dunhill. Blue, beer. German, Prince. Benz. Oh, the man who smokes blends has a neighbor who drinks water. That could be any of those, right? Those types of puzzles can be solved by applying principles from propositional logic and predicate logic. Yeah, see, it looks like we've already gotten like the easy ones, and now we'd have to start going into some more complicated stuff, right? So the Brit lives in the red house. That could be any of those, right? Swede keeps dogs as pets. That could be any of those. The Dane drinks tea. Could be any of those three. The greenhouse is exactly to the left of the White House. Means that it could be house 4 or house... No. It could be house 3 or house 4. Where was that? The greenhouse is exactly to the left of the White House. Wasn't there another one like that? Does the neighborhood drink water? Okay, so this one could be white and this could be green, or this could be white and this could be green. And again, I don't see anything about milk. So what we could probably try and do is we could try and guess. So we could say, well, okay, so then the next thing is there anything greenhouse drinks coffee? Okay, so we will say that this is white and this is green. And this one is the greenhouse drinks coffee. Right? Brit lives in the red house. So that has to be this one, right? This has to be red, Brit, milk. Dane drinks tea. Is there anything else about tea? Nope. YouTube Finance says you pretty much did the hard part there. The rest of it is easy. Well, I could still be wrong, right? Because this one could have been this one, and then this one is red. So at some point, there's going to be a contradiction, and we'll know if was the correct one or not. Okay, so what's so the color here, yellow. Okay, yellow drinks Dunhill. Wait, how come I don't get Dunhill as an option for drinking? Oh, smokes Dunhill. Durr. Tells you how much I know about smoking, right? Okay, the Dane drinks tea. So the Dane could be blue or white. Blue, no. The one who smokes bands lives next to the one who has cats and has a neighbor who drinks water. Okay. Well, the only place where you could have a neighbor that drinks water is right here, right? This guy, and then this guy smokes bands, and then his neighbor keeps cats, so that could be this one or this one. This website makes it way too easy because it's a drop-down menu and you get a green check mark for doing it right. Well, I think that it gives you a check mark if you have the logic correctly. I don't know if I had done this as the other way around, then it might have shown me something different. Oh, sorry, what was the T? I said this one is water. Yeah. Oh, this could be, so the German smokes Prince. That could be this or this. Oh, the man. Oh, I missed one. The man who keeps horses lives next to the man who smokes Dunhill. So this guy has horses. So then, where was it? The man who smokes Benz lives next to the one who keeps cats. Oh, it could still be here or here. Yeah. The Swede could be here or here. Oh, the man who smokes Blue Master drinks beer. That has to be this one, right? Yep. Blue Master drinks beer. Which means that this one is tea. And then the Dane drinks tea. The Swede keeps dogs as pets. That means that the Swede has to be over here. And what did we say? The man who who has blends. Oh, that still doesn't narrow that one down, does it? Oh, the German smokes Prince. Did we? Oh, no, we didn't determine that. The German smokes, oh, so this has to be Prince because this is the German, right? Okay. Mm-mm-mm-hmm. Oh, and then that means this one is Pall Mall and has birds, which means that this one is the cats. And then the Swede. Oh, this has to be the Swede, of course. The Swede keeps dogs. And then this guy's a fish. Okay. 13 minutes. Probably took me a little bit longer than I should have because I didn't really... It took me a little bit to get the chemical going, yeah? Do you think that they drink their coffee and their trader's going to trade mugs? I would hope so. In the video description below. Yeah, well, we should check up on that because I really want a hat. That's what I want, is a hat. I want a trader's going to trade a hat, but I don't think that they have them yet. Let's see here. Stream elements is where we get them from. I wonder how many people can actually do that puzzle. Yeah, I don't know. Probably most people. Yeah, I would think that probably most people, given enough time, could do it. Because I remember there being puzzles like that as a kid and, you know, working on the kids kind of trying to work on them together. So I think that probably most people are capable of doing it. It might just take a long time. Okay, so you can get a long sleeve shirt or a zip up hoodie now. That's cool. How do we go in here? Is it... No, it's not settings. It's store, create new item. New merchandise editor. No, I'm okay with that. Remind me later. Okay, there's t-shirt, hoodie, mouse pad, tank top, iPhone case, Samsung phone case, Mikey blanket, long sleeve tee, and a zip up hoodie. Still no hats. I really want hats. Well, a lot of channels that use Redbubble. Let's see. I've never heard of that. Redbubble. Wait. Okay. Redbubble. Redbubble, awesome products designed by independent artists. Clothing. You can get leggings. You want traders gonna trade leggings? Back from the rain, what did I miss besides the market not moving down like I said it would? Yeah, we did a logic puzzle, and we talked about some drama in the Discord yesterday where somebody was promoting Fibonacci levels. And we thought it was kind of odd. You could get masks, but they don't have. Well, wall art would be cool. Duvet covers. Why? Wait. Baby things, accessories. Maybe here there would be backpacks, drawstring bags, double bags, masks, scarves, socks, tech accessories, zipper. No, then I don't have hats. I don't see hats anywhere. Nope. What are tech accessories? Oh yeah, you also missed Win. Win is in here. Laptop skins and laptop sleeves. Okay. Mugs. So let's just compare though. If you get a mug and it's a classic mug. Oh, you actually they're about the same price actually. Some of these are super cool. So what I need to hire a graphic designer or something like that, right? No. I think if I hired somebody, that the first person that I would hire is a writer. Oh my gosh, I was on TikTok the other day and I came across this person and they were like, okay, here's like how you do top copy. Don't do this, say this. Don't say this, say this. And it was so good. And I was like, oh, can I hire this person? But then everything was basically, you can't hire me. I was like, crap. I am long, 42.59. 10 years ago when I started trading, I would have never thought we would be in these. Well, I probably would have said that, yeah, someday we'll get to 4,000. But if you had told me that we would be in the 42.50s, just more than, what is it? a year and 3 months after the pandemic, that would have been so like, when that whole thing happened, I kind of thought, it's going to take a good 2 or 3 years for us to like recover this. And then they recovered it within a few months. I was like, what the heck? And I want to know if someone is smart, I want to know what tasks they will outperform others in. Well, yeah, that's kind of where we're getting at. It's like, like the thing that I don't think people realize is that a lot of your performance on certain kinds of things could have will have a lot more to do with how much practice and effort you've put into it and the kind of attitude or reasoning that you apply to it, and not so much whether or not you are just like smart or not, right? Like when I think about IQ, I think, okay, if I take a random person and just throw a random task that they know nothing about, how well will they do in it? That's IQ to me, right? And that is something that I do tend to excel in, where it's like if there's a new technology or a new thing that we're going into and nobody else knows about it, and they usually put me on it and I figure it out. But then at the same time, it's like, is it really IQ? Because a big part of how I figure those things out is brute force. I just go in and I try every possible option of the thing until I find the thing that works. Pandemic is hitting us. Finally, we have to wear masks. Wait, what? Where is that? A test that you can prepare for is not indicative of natural intelligence. Well, it kind of begs the question if it's even possible to. Well, like, so here's the issue I have with IQ. Okay, this is the thing that I think is really interesting about it, and I think it's worth discussing because it applies to a bunch of other things, and including things that are related to trading. And I think this would be a good thing to end on, right? So the issue that I have with IQ is that really where it would be useful is having a objective measure of people's intelligence so that you can learn things about the larger population from it, right? I think that that's kind of where it's useful. Well, I know that the military did things where they were like, they make sure everybody takes an IQ test, and then they use that so that they can very quickly classify what jobs should we be putting people into and things like that. Okay, so I suppose maybe there is some use for IQ in that fashion, but like businesses aren't allowed to do that. Like you're not allowed to discriminate people based on, you can't force them to take an IQ test and then decide whether or not you want to hire them based on the IQ test, right? So really it's more useful for researchers as a tool, right? So then you get into all of these things where, for instance, Asians tend to outperform pretty much all other races on IQ tests. But when you really start to understand the statistics of IQ and everything, that is a silly measure, because the distribution has very fat tails, right? There are not very many super smart people, but the super smart people that are there are like all really super smart on those things, right? So it has fat tails, and that can really mess up like the averages, right? If you have too fat of a tail, the average doesn't matter, right? And so all of these conclusions that people try and make based off of IQ statistics are complete BS. This is one of Nassim Taleb's primary arguments, is that the result of his research into statistics, it basically shows that a lot of these applications that people try to do based on statistics are misapplications of the statistics, because those metrics don't matter when you have fat tails or other certain kinds of distributions, right? And this applies to markets as well, as we will come in here and we'll do a really simple analysis of something that X thing happens more than 50% of the time, therefore it's an edge. But the reality is that you really have to look into the more detailed probabilities of the system and of the distribution to really see if it's a profitable strategy. Right? I applied for a developer role and I was given an IQ test. Do you live in the United States? So my understanding is that in the United States that companies aren't allowed to do that. I read the timestamp data paper. It doesn't talk about futures data. Oh, are you talking about the study that I pointed out to you guys the other day about determining the direction of trades in fast action? Yeah, I don't think that in that paper he was talking about futures data, but everything that he's talking about is still applicable, right? You have to look at what the best bid and best ask was at the time that you received the trade and use that information to determine whether it's a long or a short. But in very fast market action, that rule can be less reliable. So there was a bunch of other things that he was using to determine it that were pretty indicative of which direction things were going. But you're right that it wasn't future specific. I don't see if that's how that was really pertinent, but what algorithms are used with futures? Well, the main algorithm is that when you get a market order in, they look at the best bid, best ask, and based on, if it's at the best ask, then you know that it was a market buy, and if it's at the best bid, then you know that it was a market sell. And that's generally what they do. It's just that when markets get fast, that can break down a little bit. How much it breaks down, it's insignificant, I think. Yeah. You can't view the PDF on that one? UPO. Here, let me send you something here. I don't remember where I downloaded it from. I might have gotten it from Science Hub. I don't know. Maybe maybe that was one where I had to go and find the actual author and download it. Well, one of the things that impressed me about it was that they had like the Python code and everything. I don't know. I really don't think that study is going to give you like a strong edge over other market participants per se, but I do think that it's something important to be aware of. Could matter later on down the line. Sci-Hub is great. Yeah, apparently I wasn't aware, but apparently there's I probably shouldn't be talking about Sci-Hub because apparently there's like some legal disputes over it. Do you need a title? Well, man, there's so many different things that we could pick. I could just make the video about John McAfee, but we didn't really talk about that all that interesting, and it probably wouldn't do very well in search from competition, would it? Yeah, it's no problem. When you guys first linked me to Sci-Hub, I didn't realize that it was like that. Like, I guess what somebody did was they got on the university network and just downloaded all the papers. But apparently these publishers are saying that they own this material and that you can't just download it. Which is confusing to me because, like, the public funds all this research. So, like, oh man, why did the Treasury come dip down like that? What? No. Well, it's probably too soon to be doing something like that. But like, if that were to pull, yeah, I'm just gonna do it. I thought you knew about it. I didn't 100% understand it, to be honest. I feel kind of dumb about it now, but because I've never had a problem finding scholarly papers. Well, I take that back, because there was that one time when we were trying to find one and we couldn't find it because it wasn't from a scholarly journal so much as it was from like a publication that was different. It really has not gone much of anywhere, has it, Ace? This is that market that I've been, like ever since you've been in the chat room, I've been like, well, I would probably work most of the time, but I can think of this one time where that wouldn't have worked very well. You remember all that? And then it would like never happen. And now it's finally happening. I don't know if it's gonna last for very long, but it's finally happening, and it's just every day here now. It kind of gives me flashbacks, to be honest. Which algorithm CQG use? Well, it's not CQG that's going to do the algorithm, right? It's going to be like Jigsaw is the one that does the algorithm. It's like, how does Jigsaw determine whether an order is a buy or a sell in cumulative delta? That's really what this algorithm is, right? You've dialed your targets back to take 1 point. Wow. You can do that. I mean, if the thing that's going to matter here is really going to be volume, right? Because what we should start to see is that there will still be a lot of volume. It just won't move prices far. So, then it's like, yes, we are getting the volume, but it's still constrained. Then I want to bring my targets in. Yeah, for sure. There have been some periods where, because of QE, volatility in indexes was extremely constrained, and it made trading for futures day traders very difficult. And it wasn't just us either. Like, at the time, there was a lot of headlines and concerns about profits from the big banks because they weren't making very much from trading. Goldman Sachs was getting hit hard because of that. So like, if even the big banks are having trouble making money, then what does that mean for us, right? And at the time, day trading was extremely unpopular too. Nobody wanted to do it. Very different from today, right? How is data bundled and sent from the exchange by CQG versus by Rhythmic? That's a good question, actually. So I don't know for CQG. Yeah, that was a good trade. So I did get the 1 tick. Maybe 2 might have been asking for too much, but I did get the 1 tick because there was the really wild and odd divergence there, and so we were able to take advantage of it. If you go back and you look at that would probably give you a really good clue about why I did that one. But I think most of you guys here that are here every day kind of already know why I'm doing that. Man, yeah, I remember complaining so much during that period because I found it so difficult. I was like, oh yeah, trading treasuries used to be this great trade, and now the volatility is gone and it doesn't make sense as a trade anymore. And then things exploded up again, and it was just like, oh, but when they explode up, I can't really deal with it either. But I spent all of that time trying to work on when this tight market would come. Well, we'll see. I did okay today. Remember, on Tuesday was not so hot, right? My E-mini trades were awful, but I was looking for 16 ticks on those too. And it ended up being kind of a slightly bearish day, so that one's maybe not like the final, We can work it out. I have looked at the Rhythmic data specification, but I have not looked at the CQG one, so I'm gonna guess that they're pretty similar though. The rhythmic one is just like a binary encoding. It's like fixed but binary encoded. So I don't know. Probably not a very big difference to them, right? Anyways, title. Our government regulator had to warn people not to day trade when COVID lockdown first hit? Really? Oh, I should say we did a logic puzzle, is what we should say. Markets were slow, so we did a logic puzzle. That's what I'm going to call it. All right. I don't remember a whole lot about that time period, to be honest, anymore. It's done. Okay, guys, stay profitable.